Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to the video social with or Satirize, whichever you like, or the bald guy. Today we're going to talk a little bit about something that I'm going to do a lot more about at the photo show over at the NEC. And it's quite a popular subject, it seems, these days, shooting, getting better video on your smartphone or any sort of small device, I think. So I've got a few bits and pieces here. And hopefully by the end of it there'll be some questions, and if not, come and find me at the show and take me to one side and have some questions ready or come to one of the talks. So more about that later. What I thought we'll do now is we'll run through a little bit of the sort of what I would take on a normal shoot. I've got a whole load of stuff here which is not the water, that's not really, well, that as well, but there's probably a lot more here than I would take, but it's like with anything, you take what you need. But I've kind of brought if you kind of load a full kit bag, this is what you would take, what I would take. So if we look at, let's start with mounting systems and how you would mount up a tripod and different systems for carrying it. Some of you, I'm sure, have already got a few of these. The first one, which I think most people would already have now, or at least tried one, is a gimbal, and this is a Osmo 3, pretty cheap, like 100 quid, which is ridiculous considering what they used to cost. I've been through a whole range of these over the years. I had a Movi and I had a few other ones, but this one, in terms of size and portability and how it folds up, is pretty nice. So it kind of goes in your pocket and then it folds out, which most of you, I'm sure, have already seen it. And your phone clips in here. Now, on mine, I've got a little weight which I bought, I think, from some third-party company on the internet. But more about that in a minute, actually. So, the phone clips in here, and it will balance out pretty nicely, and you can get really smooth shots without going and demoing it, because I'm sure you've all seen them before. These gimbals usually have their own app, which you can download from the manufacturer's website. And on that app, it gives you the controls to how fast you want to go, how fast you want the reactions of the gimbal to move. I tend to not use those and use slightly higher, I guess, more advanced apps. But there's nothing wrong with, this app, I think it's called Mimo, and that does all sorts of lovely tricks and panoramic shots and time lapses and all that kind of stuff, which you can't do in some of the pro apps. So it talks to the gimbal a lot nicer than using a third party, because obviously it's designed to work together, and there's a little lever here you can zoom in and out if you've got an iPhone with a couple of lenses. So you've got a bit more options if you use the manufacturer's app. I tend not to, because I prefer to have a bit more granular control over what I shoot. So here's the Osmo, and it comes with a little stand, and which is also a tripod mount, and you can use that tripod mount to a tripod, but you can also use it to mount microphones and lights with a sort of standard tripod fitting. So this is pretty nice. There's a whole load of others that I don't think they're all pretty much of a muchness nowadays, but I found this one is for what it cost. I think it's now, with the case, you get a case and the stand and this wrist strappy thing, I think it's like 110, 120, so it's £120 rather. So it's pretty nice. It's a pretty good piece of kit to keep, and it kind of goes in your pocket. But what's also nice is it has a portrait mode, so and landscape. So if you're into your Instagram stories and you're only shooting in portrait, which is one of my bugbears, but if you want to do it and you have to do it, then it's worth having. So it flicks around. So that's a little Osmo, and that can stay there. And the reason I use the counterweight on that is because I tend to shoot with additional lenses on my phone. So I've got my phone here, it's the 11 Pro, very nice, and it has got 3 lenses, as most people already know. Now there is an argument out there, which is, why do you need to add more lenses to a camera that's already got 3 lenses? So you've got the ultra wide, the wide, and the telephoto, I guess, or the 2 times the standard wide. So you don't need to, but there's certain advantages to doing that, and let me show you which ones I use at the moment. So I've got here a little kit, which I've kind of built up over the time, and a sort of a case which has got the mounting points on it. So, and in here you've got threads to mount the lenses. So if I'm going to try and do this, no doubt I'll make a complete hash of it on camera, but if I take the wide lens here, now there are other lens manufacturers that have like a bayonet fitting, but these guys, there you go, so that sits on there, and you've got the wide lens. So that wide lens over the standard lens on your iPhone will make it not as wide as the ultra wide, but still a pretty good field of view from that lens. Now the reason I would use this lens on the iPhone lens rather than the ultra wide is because you're getting the benefit of the stabilization on the camera, which the ultra wide doesn't have because it's software, not hardware, whereas the wide and the telephoto use the actual lenses are stabilizing the camera rather than use the software. So that's why I would use that. And also you can use like night shot, the night mode if you're doing stills, whereas when you use the ultra wide you don't have that night shot, whatever Apple call it. And it may be the same. Sorry, being like very Apple centric, but I'm not an Android user. But it's a similar principle. You know, at the end of the day, though, you are kind of sticking a piece of glass to another piece of glass, which isn't going to be ideal. But you can get these lenses are pretty good. They're not super cheap, but they are, you know, they're $100, $80, and they come with a clip to clip on your camera. So if you don't want to use the case, you can just clip them on. And these are from a company called Sandmark, and they are a US company, but they're a great company, and they've got some really nice products. They do a lot of drone filters and all sorts of things. And you can actually add filters to these as well. They make a range of ND filters, which we can talk about in a little while. So I've got here, so with my normal shooting kit in this little pouch, I've got a wide, which is really lovely, and I use that probably 90% of the time. There's a telephoto lens, which is just a bit chunkier, and this will give you on the normal iPhone the same as the 2x, but if you put it on the 2x on the iPhone, you're going to get 4x. So you're going to get a really lovely tight shot there, which is great for interviews, or it's great for trying to get that kind of more natural blurred out background rather than using the kind of processed look you get. I've also got a macro lens, which I don't use very much. It's a bit of fun though, and it's good. You can go, like if I put it here on my eye, it will shoot my eyeball for some reason if you'd want to do that. And there's a fisheye, which is fun, but I probably use it least. It's quite fun in video, but it does capture a lot. So when you're wandering around, you can get your fingers in shot quite easily with this, but it's a cheeky little fisheye there, which we like. And one that I've started to play with, which is more for sort of the sort of cinematography, if you're into that kind of video, is an anamorphic lens. So this is fairly specialist in that it stretches the picture that way. So with the Pro apps, which I'll show you in a second, what it actually does is it shoots more vertical resolution, and then when you edit it, you can pull it out so you get more of the width, which is really nice. It's a little bit finicky to get right, and it's a bit more to play with in edit, but what you get is you get really lovely lens flares, and you get kind of much more of a filmic look to things. But it's not for everybody, but it's kind of in my little collection of lenses just because it's fun to have. So there's my lenses, there's the lens case. What I'll do is I'll pop it on the phone without dropping it on the floor, so you can kind of see how it all sits together. So there we go. So there's the lens case, and what I'll do is if I'll pop on let's use the wide angle. So I'll clip that in. There we go. So with this case, I can use either lenses. You can't clip an extra lens onto the really wide lens because it's really wide, and you'll end up seeing the lens. So if I open up just a regular camera app, so there we go. So how are we going to see this without, there we go. See if we can pick that up on the camera. There's not a lot to see, unfortunately, but if I go to the regular, let's wait for the camera to grab it. There we go. We got it, cameraman? Yep, good. So if I kind of show you that's the wide view with the wide attached, and if I unscrew it without dropping it, that's what it is normally. So if you kind of see it's quite a big difference. I'll hold it in front of it, see if you can see. It's not screwed in, but there's the difference. And if I go to the other one, obviously, it's, you know, the ultra wide won't do anything. So if I leave that wide lens on for now, you go, now fingers and thumbs. So I tend to shoot, if I'm shooting video on my phone, I tend to shoot with wide lens on the regular lens of the iPhone. So out of the 3 lenses, the standard lens, or the wide, not the ultra wide or the telephoto. So I've got this hooked up, and what I was saying before about this little counterweight, which you'll need, is because when you start trying to balance a gimbal with extra lenses on, you don't want to put sort of a stress on the motors. So when you put it in, and you want to, especially if you want to use the wider lenses, you have to kind of get it so that the lens isn't in shot. So if you balance the thing, what these weights do here is it will compensate for the fact you've got a really heavy lens on, because obviously a lot of these gimbals aren't designed they're designed to be used with a phone without any lenses attached. So it's fairly easy to balance-ish when you're not, there we go. So that's kind of right. But what you'll find is that because you've got this little counterweight at the side, these are 3 little weights which you can, there we go. So it's now balanced-ish. Dum dum dum. It would be if I wasn't so, there we go. So now that's balanced. We could probably turn on the gimbal and see if it works. There we go. So it's gone into portrait mode there, and then we can switch it back to landscape. So because I've got this little weight stuck on the side, it's not straining the motor, so you can get away with it, you can use it, you can push the camera away, but by doing this, what you'll find is that when you start shooting, you're not going to pick up the motor. So when you're doing gimbal moves and you're going around, with any of use the iPhone app or the one of the apps I'll show you in a second, it doesn't pick up this motor here, and it can do when you're moving. So it's a really good weight. It's really cheap. They're about £8 or £9, but there's a little screw thread in there which is designed to have these sort of counterweights on them. So if we leave that on there, this is kind of, I guess, a very basic but really versatile setup. So I would, if you're only going to take your phone and something with, this is all you need to do most of the stuff that I shoot if I'm going totally mobile and totally discreet. And most people don't bat an eyelid because you've just got a phone on a thing. They might start looking at the lens, and if you bang a filter on the front, then it's going to attract a little bit more attention, but nowhere near as much as if you start taking a whole SLR or mirrorless or something with you. So that's a pretty standard setup. The battery in this lasts for ages, and you can actually charge the phone from it, which is an interesting little segue. Actually, to probably the most important piece of kit more than anything is what I will always pack in the bag is an external USB pack, because when you start shooting 4K or whatever, it burns the battery in the phone quite severely. So I would keep a spare power pack, and this one, 30 quid, and it goes forever. And it's USB-C and USB and whatever, but it charges pretty much all the devices that I use, whether it be a microphone or the phone or a gimbal or whatever it might be. It charges them all, and you could probably charge everything a couple of times over the course of a day and still have enough juice left, which is great. So we've got the gimbal, we've got a little lens. Now we can now look at more traditional sort of stabilization tools, I guess, where main one being a tripod. So I got this the other day, and I was quite excited by it, like a bit pathetic and sad really, but I did a Kickstarter for this Peak Design tripod, which was apparently the most successful Kickstarter thing ever. And I use all their bags. I'm not paid to say it, they're just pretty good. So I took a punt, and this came through the other day, and they've kind of reimagined the tripod a little bit, but it's so small and it's light enough that I now take a tripod where I wouldn't bother taking a tripod before. So it now sits in the side pocket of my bag, or it can strap underneath the sling bag, and it goes pretty high. And they've designed it so it's pretty quick to deploy. So we do that, drop all the legs out. It looks pretty thin actually, and it is. But it's a tripod. It just means that I guess I'm using it more than I would do normally. So here we go. So that's the kind of stuck out there, and you've got a little thing here, and you can raise that up. And this is just a ball head, so it's not a video head, which is obviously not going to be good if you're trying to do pans and tilts and moves. But what is great is if you want to do time lapse or interviews, you can stick the iPhone on top of here. And there's a really nice little trick, which hopefully if Mr. Camera can zoom into. So down at the bottom, you've obviously got the hook to hang your bag on to keep it more steady. But if you pull this out the bottom, I don't know, are you on it? We good? So that pulls out. There's a little magnetic thing inside. And what this is a little iPhone mount, which goes into the top here. If I can get it in. So there, so then your phone, if I can show you, can now sit in the top of the tripod. If I get it the right way around. There we go. There we go. So now that's kind of in there, and that's all self-contained within the tripod, which is pretty cool. And it's quite nice if you just want to, you could leave that, do a time lapse. You can obviously set up for an interview and just leave it locked off, because I think a lot of time when you start getting into filming and filmmaking of any description, whether it's on your phone or a mirrorless or SLR or whatever you might be doing, is that the tendency is to try and overcomplicate things. And I've always a firm believer in, I'd rather get the shot nicely focused, framed and exposed than trying to be clever and run around with a gimbal and do the moves, because actually using a gimbal is quite hard to do well. It's not something, no matter what you see on the videos on YouTube and guys on skateboards going through New York saying it's super cool and you know, whatever they call it. It's a really difficult technique which does involve quite a lot of practice to get rid of movements and judders and to learn how to use it to create those really nice moves. And that, you can get some nice stuff with it out of the box, but to get it really good, it takes practice. So if you've got a job or you've got an interview and you want to do some, you know, semi-professional work or professional work using the phone, I would always kind of err on the side of caution and try and sort of construct the story using a series of stills rather than trying to be clever with moving shots. And you are limited with a tripod that doesn't have a pan and tilt head, of course. But then the benefit is you're then thinking, well, what are my shots going to be? What are my frames going to be? So do I start? Yeah, I start with a wide, I then do a tight shot, and I then go to a mid shot. So you're kind of thinking wide, mid, and then you start shooting and constructing the story around the shots, because you're almost limiting yourself and not giving yourself a whole kind of plethora of stuff to play with. So maybe get wide lens and the telephoto lens and use that to shoot with. And there's a couple of questions popped up. Oh, okay. That's very cool. Thank you. Very cool, mate. Excellent. That's like a very Borat photo there. So that's the Peak Design travel tripod, and the ball head does move around, so you could kind of rotate it into a landscape way or that kind of way. But it's a pretty neat piece of kit, and I've already been using it on still shoots, and I've been kind of flicking the camera into video, which is something else I'm going to be talking about at the show. So the kind of hybrid shooting where you are a photographer, which I know lots of people at the show are, moving into video and then want to kind of add a bit of video filming to your repertoire, but maybe feel a little bit nervous about going down that road, or you know, what settings and how to get the camera performing properly. So it's a great way of, you know, again, you know, kind of just taking it slowly but keeping it simple is always more effective. And then you can tell the story in the edit, which is nice, because then you know what shots you've got. You're not worried about whether it's, you know, the focus is held or your gimbal's gone a bit funny or it's not balanced properly. You're limiting it down to a camera, lens and a tripod, and that's your shooting kit. So taking it up a notch, you've got your camera, you've got lenses, which you may or may not need. What's quite nice is to think about now adding some audio, and it's not an easy thing to do on a smartphone, because smartphones aren't really designed to deal with professional audio connections, and it's a bit of a ball ache to, is that okay to say, to get decent audio. Is that okay? Is that allowed? Is it? To get decent audio into a smartphone, it's a bit of a kludgy way of doing it. So the best way of using professional audio with a smartphone is to just record it separately. And as a first, sort of, if you want to do it really well, that's what I will always do. But of course, then you have to learn how to synchronize it afterwards. So if we kind of start with what I'd say sort of beginner's level microphone, is this little thing here, which is really simple to use. Other devices are available that are similar, but this one is what I've got, the Sennheiser memory mic. And basically it's just a recorder with about 4 hours of recording time, which is charged by a little USB, and it's the microphone capsule. Now the microphone in here is the same as the microphone I'm wearing now, which is a really good microphone. And these, you can buy these off of Amazon or wherever, and there's a little clip. So what you can actually do is you synchronize it with your phone, and it connects to your phone. You set it to record. There's not infinite amount of settings. It's like low, medium, or high sensitivity, but you can pop it into a pocket. Or if I was doing a presentation, or we were recording a speaker at a conference, you could just clip it on their shirt, but you're not relying on then the ambient audio of the room. So if I was recording me on my iPhone now, I would probably just sort of clip this here, or hide it or clip it on the inside of my jumper or something, and set it to record. Now, when you've done with recording, you've got two things you can do. You can either take the audio files and pull them into your edit suite, but if you use the inbuilt app that Sennheiser make, which again, it's pretty basic because they're not a software company, but if you use their video app to record with, and then you stop recording, it then will automatically match the files with the files on here. So it's very simple camera app. It's front camera or back camera, stop, start, record, and pretty much it. But what it does is it matches for you the audio you've got from here with the audio that you filmed. And then you can actually adjust in the little edit thing how much of each microphone you want. So you could keep a little bit of ambient noise from the iPhone, the smartphone, and you can keep a little bit of noise from the memory mic. So it's pretty good. It's reasonably priced, but it's something you can kind of always keep in your kit bag. So if you're doing an interview, you could pop it on the talking head, stick it in, or even hide it in some flowers or something, and just set it to record, and kind of set it and forget it really. So you'll get about 3 hours 50 or 4 hours of record time, and obviously you have to charge it up and stuff at the end of the day, but it lasts 4 hours. So that's a really nice minimal way of getting semi-decent audio. I say into your phone, but at least at the same time as your phone, without having to buy a more perhaps complicated recorder. So once you've kind of feel like you've outgrown this, or you feel it's not performing enough, you can then start looking at possibly hooking up a microphone to the phone. Now it's a little bit more tricky when you're on a gimbal, because the more weight you add onto it, it's going to be problematic. So what I would do is, for audio stuff, try and avoid shooting on a gimbal. I mean, you can connect a microphone under here and as you walk around, but what you really want to be doing is either using a radio mic or using a sort of a shotgun mic or a boom mic, which is, again, another level of filmmaking. But if you want to go down the wireless route, the next sort of level up from the memory mic would be these little, I'm going to get this right, XSWD system. So this is the receiver, which will connect to the phone or your camera, and it comes with a couple of cables, but you need a little bit of an adapter to get it working. So that will clip, that brings the signal into your phone. This is what the microphone plugs into. So you plug that into here. These are all USB chargeable, so they last a few hours, I think 3 hours or so again. It's always 3 hours, whatever device you use, 3 hours, 4 hours. So that you can clip onto someone and hide it. You can put any mic in here. You could even clip it to a shotgun mic if you wanted to, and tie it together with some elastic bands if you want to make the shotgun wireless. So that goes in here. And this one's a little bit more of a interesting connection system. So you put that in here as normal. Now, if you're on a DSLR or mirrorless, something like that, you plug this into the side, and then away you go. When you're on a phone, it's a little bit more involved, because Apple don't make life easy, right? So if you're on an Android, everyone's going to go, yeah, Android, it's got this. So with Apple now, there's no headphone socket, so you've got your adapter, and into that adapter, you need to put another adapter, which goes like here, thus. So that goes into your phone, and that gives you a sort of 3.5mm socket, which you then plug the microphone into. So in theory, you kind of go into it like this. So now you've got this, and now you can either clip that onto a hot shoe, or you can kind of put it in the pocket or extend the cable. So that gives you the receiver, and this is the transmitter with the mic in it. And it's very, very, very easy system to use, because you just turn them on, and they pair, and you're good to go. They're not going to go for miles. They'll probably be good in across the room. They say 75 meters in sort of good space, but they use a Wi-Fi connection, which is, the pros are you don't need a license, you can use it anywhere. The cons are, if you're in a very heavy congested Wi-Fi area, you're going to need to kind of keep things a little bit closer to the camera, which is fine, because you're not going to be recording someone 2 miles away with it. And these work really well, and they're reasonably priced, but they're also quite small, and you keep in the kit. So you keep those charged, and again, they can all charge off one of the USB battery pack. And then going up a level again, if you really wanted to go to the next level, then you're looking at something more like a traditional wireless radio pack. So this is the AVX system, and here you've got an XLR connection, which is a better connection than the 3.5mm, but won't really affect it if you're using a phone. But then you'll need to get one of these adapters, which plug into here, and then you're back to our friends, the iPhone thing as well. So even more adapters. But this is a slightly more advanced professional system. So yeah, you've got a whole kind of range of adapters that go into that. But you can kind of put this, you could put this in your pocket, and then there's the mic pack. So the microphone goes into here, and again, it's the same mic actually in this kit that comes with that set. And these are all rechargeable too, and they last about 12 hours, not 3 hours, 12 hours or something like that on continuous use. So a good full day of shooting. So the issue, of course, is how to get all this stuff mounted onto your phone, right? Because it's not really designed for it. So if we move the gimbal out, because you've got no chance of getting all that mounted on to the phone and the gimbal, it'll just kill the gimbal, is I've picked up one of these cases and I've put the tripod mount on it. And this is about 45 quid. So you put the phone in this plastic case, and the plastic case gets clipped into the cage with magnets. It's pretty fun. But what you can do is you've got hot shoes on here, so you can take your microphones and mount them to the top of the phone like that. We got the thumbs up. Are we on there? Good. Yeah, so there you go, and you've got a way of connecting it. And then, which nicely brings us on to, quickly, because I'm probably going to go over time, the final sort of mic, which if you really want to go for it, a shotgun mic. And this is, again, a few £100. It's a very nice little mic, very nice shotgun mic, MK600, I think. There's lots of letters, but that could sit on here like that. Your phone goes in here. The problem will be, of course, that you're going to start picking up the mic in the shop if you're using a super wide lens, of course. But this is really more of a mic you would possibly use as a boom on a pole and record remotely. But you can use the same cable, plug it into your phone, and this is a shotgun mic. So rather than it being a lapel or a lavalier, which I've got, this will pick up stuff pretty much from in front and that kind of pattern around it. So if you're in a noisy environment, this is why people use booms and boom poles, is because they get it, pointing at the person talking. So the key to all decent audio, regardless of what microphone you use, I would say, is to get as close to the source of the sound as you can. And if you can't, and then you can try and get as quiet as environment as you possibly can. So, if you're at a busy conference, try and find a side room. And if you don't have a microphone, even more importantly, because the mics on the iPhone are going to just kind of pick up everything. So you want to isolate the person talking and the noise and the ambient noise of the room. So really your ears are the best guide. It's a bit tricky to hear what the camera's recording at the same time. That would involve another cable, and I've been playing around on Amazon for a couple of days trying to find a cable that works, and most of them don't. There's a couple of devices you can get which you plug in, which will give you a couple of mics and headphone monitoring, but a lot of the apps you can't adjust the levels anyway because they're not really it's automatic gains and stuff. So if you want to monitor, I think you can on certain apps use Bluetooth headphones to listen to the sound coming in, and there's a slight delay, so it can be a bit off-putting, but as a check to see if there's audio coming in, that's pretty good. So there you go. So then you've got your let's say you're rigged up and you've got the mic on here. As an other option for a sort of quick run and gun, if you like, solution, I've started playing around with these lovely little things, which are Lume Cubes, and they are tiny little lights which are waterproof. They're also magnetic. I don't think anything's none of this is magnetic, but magnetic metals. But these are controllable by the phone too, and they're really bright, really bright. You can use them as an iPhone flash, so when you take a photo, they will flash like the phone light does. You get lots of diffusers. Now I'll put this on, it's probably going to blind. So that's on the lowest setting. But you can see this, it's quite a nice light with the size of it, and it's really bright. I can't see anything there. And you've got a couple of different filters for daylight or tungsten, etc. But you can also add, they do a whole load of stuff, snoots and barn doors and all sorts of things which you can get, which you clip on, which are magnetic, which are really great. So these last for, again, a couple of hours. They're USB rechargeable, our friend, the USB, but you can mount this to the phone. You can mount it on the normal phone bracket, which they sell in a kit. So this is the Lume Cube Air, and it's remote controlled with the app on the phone. But I won't dare to connect it in here because I've got all the stuff running on my phone at the moment. But there we go, that's that, and you can adjust it with the little button on top or turn it off. But that's kind of live and it's connected. You can also join 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 of them together. You can have them all in a row. You can have them on the tripods. You could put a tripod mount on it and use them on the tripod, or a lighting stand, or maybe a little monopod, a tiny little sort of selfie stick stand. You could take one of those with you, and it'd give you, like, you could get a 3-head lighting kit, and it would do a decent job using a couple of selfie sticks with the feet on. So that's all that. I'm going to briefly touch on software. What I might do is leave it up on here, actually. So the camera, I have to have my shaky hands if I switch the phone around, rather than me trying to hold it. If I clip this into the tripod, what we'll do is try and unlock it first. Need to use my face. There you go. So I use a couple of apps which you may or may not have heard of. One of them is a particular popular one called Filmic, but one of them is an app which has been developed by a bunch of guys in Brighton, and they're a really good bunch, and they're really helpful. And it's very similar to Filmic Pro, but I personally find the interface on this a lot cleaner. So if I kind of leave it around there so the camera can pick it up. This is what they call the director's view. But what you can see here is you've got the audio levels bouncing up and down, and they do have manual audio on this as well, so you can tweak the gain if certain mics are being used. But you can kind of hide all this to give you a bigger view. There we go. So that gives you a much sort of wider view. But again, you've got a lot of granular controls over what you've got here, and lots of settings. So you have white balance, you have where's white balance, you've got focus, manual, you can set the set the shutter speed how you like. You've got focus peaking, so you can kind of see which bits are in focus and which aren't. It's a very, very well-rounded app, and I think there's a pro pack you can buy with different extra bits and pieces. This is kind of the fully loaded version. But what I like about it is that I find it really easy to set things and lock things, whereas Filmic can be a little bit twiddly, although it's the industry standard. So here we go. So here's the app. It tells you how much battery life you've got, the microphone levels. You can push that back out and sort of set it up fully automatic, or you can take it off automatic and just use the sliders to set bits and pieces. And that's pretty much, it's a very quick overview of that. But I quite like that app. You can set it to record in a higher quality than your native camera apps too. So it gives you a lot more oomph when you're editing, a lot more data to play with. How are we doing for time? Good, excellent. Let's have a quick check of questions. There we go. Please make a blog with links to products. I will add that hopefully to my website. What's the best way to film 2 people talking at a noisy event? What would your ideal setup be for tripod and audio? Well, interestingly, 2 people talking is doubly complicated because you've got, ideally 2 microphones. But failing that, the best way to do it would be to get them somewhere quiet. And if you're like at a trade show or something, it's really difficult to do. But if you're at a trade show, I'd probably stand them next to each other and end up using a shotgun mic, because you can hold it, and you often see it on the news. They've got it in like a pistol grip, and they're sort of holding it like this. And you can get various windshields. A company called Rycote makes some really nice, I call them furry things, Mr. Furries. You see them on telly. They're called dead cats. They're the grey things that got fur on. But what they do is they absorb a lot of the wind noise, a lot of ambient noise as well, acoustic noise. So they're quite good for putting on the top. And again, if you're pointing it here, you're not going to get a lot of noise coming from behind the microphone. So push people into a corner of a room, and then you've got no sound coming from the back, and you're kind of blocking the sound from the front, and take them to one side or take them to a room at least with some sort of shielding. And then what have we got? We've got two people talking. And if you want two cameras, then you have two cameras. However, there's a new little app which has come out, which is really quite cool. Now, this isn't it doesn't shoot in 4K yet, and it's not got the granular control of the main Filmic app. But what you've got here is, and you can't see because I've got the lens on, if I unscrew that, it's not going to work with external lenses too well. But what you can see here is, it's basically, these are all the cameras, including the front camera. So what this app can do is you can actually choose which two cameras you want to shoot at the same time. And you can do one of several things. You can record picture in picture, so you've got side by side at the same time, or you can record them as separate strips, separate streams. So effectively, I can record the front camera and the back camera. So if I'm doing a vlog, and you can probably see here that everyone wave, hello, right, there we go. So there's the camera that this back camera is pointing, and this is the front camera, and that's the telephoto, the two, and that's the ultra wide, the wide, and the telephoto. So I could choose to record two of those cameras simultaneously, and then you've effectively got a two-camera shoot. So that's a really nice way of actually getting two angles at the same time. So you could, in theory, have one person standing here and one stand there, and then record them both together, and you've got two people talking side by side. But actually, it's the same. It's using the phone, so it's recording from up to two lenses at once, any combination of two. And that was released a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago. That's really handy. But I think for audio, it's safer to record it separately, always. So maybe a small recorder, a Zoom or an Olympus or Tascam or something like that. And then you move into sort of more professional mixers and sound devices and stuff which are expensive. There's one thing I have to mention, which I think has been a great invention, a real lifesaver for me, because I've got a bit of OCD when it comes to hiding microphones, is if you're going to use lapel mics, I mean, I've got it on here because it sounds excellent, but if you're doing an interview or a drama or sort of something a bit more exciting, you don't like the clip, which you can see here being exposed. I use these, and these are what are called undercovers. And they look like, they're basically the pads like you were. I always kind of joke with my clients when I'm miking them up that I'm going to do an ECG, because it looks like the tags that they put on you when you have your heart monitored. And effectively what they do is, I won't do it here because I hear a mic crackle, but if I show you on this mic I've got here. So what you can do is take off the clip, and then you actually, it's a bit fiddly to show on camera, but you clip one side and you would take the pop shield off. So one side goes onto the sticky, and you kind of then cover it with a foam shield like that, and then the other side can then go onto your clothing, and it's pretty sticky. It can actually go onto skin as well, which is always fun to remove after a shoot. So if you really, really don't like the person you're interviewing, find the hairiest part of, I'm assuming his chest, rather than female chest, but you can find this hair, but it's not too bad. It doesn't really hurt too much, but it's always fun to make a bit of a joke at the end about giving them a little cheeky wax. But what you've got a windshield there, but you can hide it, actually stick it to clothes or underneath the jacket, and that way you can then totally hide the microphone. So they're really cheap as well, and they're obviously disposable, and you can't use them again. And likewise, you probably wouldn't want to stick a thing on if it's been on someone's hairy chest, but they're quite good. They're undercovers, and they're from Rycote, and they're good. They're about 10 quid for a whole pack of. They get grey ones. There's a grey one here. No, it's not. There's a grey one. There's grey foam, white foam, and black foam, so you can hide them in the range of things. And I think, how do you combat shooting on phones in low light conditions? Put the lights on. There's not a lot you can do, but again, if you're using a manual camera app rather than the inbuilt one, which does a lot of automatic settings, I would use, and you want to try and keep, because it's like with any filming or photography, the higher up the ISO, the sensitivity goes, the more grain you're going to get. If you are shooting on a phone, you really do need to add some light, which would kind of go back to these Lume cubes. Or actually, there's this panel also, which you can mount, which is, again, other companies make them. Lume Cube have launched this a while ago, but this is a much bigger light, and you can mount this you could mount it onto the top of your phone again, or you get someone to hold it. There's a clip-on diffuser here. But this one's kind of interesting because this one's only at 5% brightness now. So we can see how that, and that's 5 hours of use, but if I pump it up to 100%, it's almost like, it's blinding. So at 100% you get about 2 hours for full charge, but you would rarely use it 100% because it is ridiculously bright. But what you can do is, this one's what they call bicolor. So you can change the color temperature to make it warmer. So I don't know if the camera will pick it up or not, but that's now kind of, it should look a little bit orange, which makes it, especially if you're in a sort of, not with these sort of here, we've got these bright white LEDs, but if you want to try and color match, and you can see there's a display on the back that tells you what the color temperature is. So there's a range of things, and this is so small, again, it can sit in the back, in your back pocket, and off you go on the shoot. And you can use a sort of hot shoe mount and smack it onto the tripod or this. That's pretty much it. There is one device which I do carry with me, which isn't a smartphone, which I will mention because I think it's worth considering. So if you don't want to go down the iPhone gimbal, this has been around for a wee while. I would imagine there's a new version coming out fairly soon. But this is something that I just take on every trip with me, the Osmo Pocket. And it's a remarkable little device. For what it does, incredible quality. And I kind of included it because you connect it, if you want to, with and you can use, and there's an Android version as well. And this uses the same app that the Osmo does. And you can connect it to your phone. You plug it in the side of the phone, and it should, let's see if this works. It should automatically, there we go. So it's known it's plugged in, and now you've got your whole, you've got the settings, and you can change it, and you've got quite a lot of manual settings to change the shutter speed and all that kind of stuff. So that will then give you, you've got your panoramas, you've got photos, and it will time lapses, all sorts of things. But it's a fantastic device, and you can just pull it away from the phone, and then you can kind of carry on filming with it like this. But it's a stabilized little pocket device, which is pretty fun. And you can add filters to that as well, little magnetic filters that clip on the front, so you can keep your shutter speeds down and all that kind of stuff. So that is something that I would go for. I think they're about 280, 250, something like that somewhere. But I'd imagine there's a fair amount of second-hand ones going too. And there's loads of third-party accessories, jacket clips, bag clips, tripod mounts, all sorts of stuff. So that's the Osmo Pocket, and that, I think, is pretty much it. I'll just check, see if any more questions come through. No. There we go. And are you going to go close up for a small tear just rolling gently down my eye? Other than that, I've got quite a lot of talks on at the show, and I'm doing on the 14th and 15th of March after lunch, so you can come with your full bellies. Simple video techniques, so maybe looking at a slightly different range of cameras, not just smartphones. And I'm doing some editing stuff, mobile editing on an iPad and keeping it all mobile. There's lots of lovely people here who are really great talking, and lots of stuff about audio. I'm talking about shooting on 2 cameras. Emma is waving at me in the background to plug her talk. Oh, we're doing a talk as well, and her talk. Emma is doing a talk with me, and basically she's just going to make me look very bad at my job. But we're doing some stuff, and we're going to be looking at her lovely work, and basically it's just going to be her pointing out why I have no friends, essentially. So that's what we do, and also she's doing lots of women in video filming, can speak. Women in photo film who are, I think, on later, live streaming later, 2 o'clock. If I ever shut up, they'll be on. And I'm going to get bashed out there. And so at 2 o'clock, women who photo and film, and that's going to be really fascinating. And she's very good at what she does, unlike me. So that's great. And I'm doing loads of things. But if you check out that website, check out the program, you'll be sick of the sights of me by the end of March, I would imagine. And that's it. So keep the questions coming in. If you want to contact me, Hopefully the social team will stick up my Instagram and Twitter and whatever afterwards, but at Satcherize is how to get hold of me. So ping any questions, and that's it. Have a lovely afternoon. Enjoy Emma later. Please make it difficult for her. Ask her lots of challenging questions. She loves really, really technical questions. Really, really heavily technical questions she loves. Bit rates and codecs are her favourite thing. She's absolutely in love with codecs. So anything you want to know about bit rates, you know, she's into that. Lovely. Other than that, I'll see you at the show. Have a good afternoon. Bye.